Right, so work. Yes, they can work. People on BNO visa can work. Some people have jobs lined up, but some people are finding it, like our fantasy character ML, a little bit harder to get work than they'd expected, and there's a number of reasons for this. There is some work being done on this at a national level by the Welcome Committee, the National Welcoming Committee for Hongkongers, but so far not a huge amount of progress by the sound of it. So the first issue can be recognition of qualifications. Some of you may be familiar with the old NARIC system, which is now called ENIC. I think Renee C would probably be more familiar with that. But the process that you have to go through to get qualifications from overseas universities or education bodies recognised in the UK. So that is proving a little bit harder in some cases than in others. Also, some people have got qualifications. For example, I was talking to somebody the other day who was fully qualified she described fully qualified in Chinese medicine, but had realized without realizing when she got here that was not a field that she would be able to work in the NHS with, for example, because the NHS apparently don't recognize Chinese medicine or that high level qualification from Hong Kong as being something that fits within their commissioning practices. Another question around being able to move into the profession you're qualified in is the level of English. So, for example, for all medical people coming from other countries, there's a minimum requirement of for a fairly high level of English, and to have that they need something called an IELTS exam, although there are different options as well. So people may be looking for that kind of training and that kind of qualification if they didn't manage to have it before they arrived. And then there's a very big issue around clearance, safeguarding, the safeguarding requirement for DBS checks. Now, I've had to, I appreciate very much input from Alex Mack, who couldn't come here today, who clarified some points on this for me from Hongkongers in Britain. I'm very familiar with the DBS check, but I'm not familiar with the CNCC. So the CNCC is a certificate of no criminal convictions, which is issued by the Hong Kong police. With a DBS for a safeguarding or any kind of job working with children or in health in the UK, of course, you need to have a DBS enhanced certificate showing that you're not a risk to vulnerable people. The DBS certificate, I didn't realise this, only examines records in the UK. They do not actually go out to international sources to complete that DBS checking process. I wasn't aware of that. I thought they did, but apparently not. So Hong Kongers need then in order to prove that they are not a risk to vulnerable people, they need to get this CNCC certificate issued by the Hong Kong police, and the Hong Kong police are refusing to issue those certificates. So without a full DBS and without the CNCC, people are finding it very difficult to move into work with children or carers or in health, for example. And Alex very kindly sent some links to examples of good practice developed by the Department for Education, which provides employers with alternatives of various things, for example, different kinds of references and other kinds of risk assessment that employers can use so that they can go ahead and employ Hong Kongers. So that may be something that the voluntary sector needs to become more aware of. So those organisations working with children or in healthcare or with older people or mental health, for example, who would like to employ Hong Kong people in the staff in order to improve their reach and engagement with Hong Kongers, may need to become aware of that kind of information so that they can avoid being blocked by this difficulty around the DBS and the CNCC. And that is one of the links that I'll be sending out at the end after this call. There is also, and Renee, so you may have some experience here. I understand people are saying they do have some difficulties with the application and recruitment processes, because what is expected in an interview with a British employer is not what people are used to having to provide if they're applying for jobs. In terms of the culture, the way you answer interview questions, your approach as you go into the room, for example. Asmara, do you have, or any of the people who are working, or Suzanne as well, do you have any experience with this? You said you were working directly in this area, Suzanne. You're on mute.
Sorry there, Sarah. Yes, because actually the whole process is different from how you would apply for a job in terms of a CV to the actually, you know, a competency-based interview, how you would be interviewed, what you would be expected from yourself at an interview here from the UK, how you answer questions here in the UK. So the whole process is quite alien actually to them. So the part of the support that Renee sort of provides is that we actually give them those tools and enable them to produce a CV that would be, if you like, well received within the UK, the skills in terms of how to search for a job, but also the skills in terms of how to share your story, share your background, share your skills in a way that actually can make you comparable to another candidate that's applying for the same job, whether they're from Hong Kong or not. So it is actually quite, and they're not used to talking about themselves and their strengths, and actually they are not used to, you might be asked, so what might be your development areas? They're not actually used to talking about their weaknesses. That's quite uncomfortable for them. So there's some cultural differences in terms of interviewing, and it's explaining to them the reasons why perhaps employers might ask certain questions at interview, so that again they feel happy to share, which links very well from what you're saying. If they've, you know, had some like the trauma that they've experienced, again they could feel quite exposed in an interview setting.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Yeah, I mean, most people in Britain find the whole interview process pretty difficult to manage. So
exactly.
coming from a professional background where you've had very different cultures and expectations and experiences, and realizing that they actually don't apply in this situation. Again, it's one of these areas where you can become disarticulate, so you can end up not being able to express yourself and blocked from taking part in things that you should be able to access, that you have the skills and other things to access.
Exactly, and you don't feel it's not a natural conversation for anybody. I don't know anybody who really says I love interviews, very few people, but actually for them to actually share their experience and to feel comfortable and natural, so that their true selves come across in terms of their personality. When they've got the language barrier as well, it's just something else that they need more practice and reassurance with. And as I say,
thank you. And you mentioned the language barrier there, which is quite good, because I was just going to come on to the question about levels of English that people need, not just to get into employment, but if they are going to need counselling or they want to build up connections with people outside the Hong Kong community, just the ability to express and the ability to communicate. So there seems to be quite a clear picture that Hong Kongers are saying, actually, we do speak and read and write fairly good English, but we just don't think we do. And there are difficulties with understanding accent, I've mentioned already as well. And I've also, just to flag up, don't forget that diversity within the community. So older people, for example, may have no English at all. It's entirely possible. Those questions about the vocabulary that all migrants need to learn. You know, what does ESOL stand for? Did you know that ESOL is English, for example? What is GP? Everyone talks about GP, what's GP? General practitioner, but I want a doctor. All these things. A health visitor, what's a health visitor? Somebody who visits my health? No, it's a specialist nurse who looks, you know, comes and visits families and looks at the health of the family of 0 to 5. So these special areas of vocabulary that people still need a great deal of, and just that confidence to talk, to engage, to have a go. In terms of ESOL, people can access, because people on the BNO visa have the right to study, and asylum seekers as well, once they've been in the UK for 6 months, can take up ESOL from the adult education budget. But now we only have a couple of you here doing ESOL, so I won't go into I'm not going to go into any detail about ESOL funding. But just to note that there is money from the central government, from the Department of Levelling Up, of £800 per adult from Hong Kong for ESOL that goes through the adult education budget. And we have Ying Chan. Is this correct, what I'm saying here, Ying Chan? £800 from Levelling Up, but the AEB budget, they have to have been here for 3 years, I understand, before.
That's it, yeah. But like I said, the Mayor of London made an announcement that they're kind of relaxing on a 3 years rule, but it did say it's for certain groups, in addition to refugees or those who definitely need to remain. But they haven't told us which certain groups are included in this, so I don't know if that includes BNO
Maybe
passport
one,
holders,
maybe a week before you'll start it back in the courses in September, you might actually know who you can have on it. Yeah, okay.
But,
So there's definitely, sorry.
So I was going to say that the rates, the £800, that's actually gone up to 850.
Oh, okay, thank you.
From the beginning of, actually, I think it came into effect from the 1st of July.
From the 1st of July, right. Thanks very much. So there are options there for people to develop their skills, to develop their ability to communicate, feed, whether it's for employment or others, and of course, very important for well-being, to be able to form those engagements outside. I
can just add that even if they're ineligible for GLA funding, there are adult community learning services that have a bursary, so sometimes they let them go on their courses for free.
Actually, you know, I can add to that as well in terms of reaching out perhaps for older people as well. I mean, a coffee morning is good for English. You know, any social interaction, any context that you create for social interaction does help with English.
That's right.